Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Onslaught University stream number 2. We are here together today with Mr. Firewatch and Mr. Chance, who will be presenting you another stream about today's topic about how we frontline and how the slot system works in detail. Hey, Firewatch. Hey, Chance. Maybe you can say hello.
Yo, hello.
Good morning.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Twitch channel. Also welcome everyone here in the voice chat. We will have a lot to talk about and we will maybe have a lot of questions afterwards. So you can feel free to ask your questions either in the Twitch chat right here or afterwards in the voice channel in the Onslaught series Discord. Just to get you up to speed, what is going on here? So we currently have a captain's event going on. The captain's event is an event that goes on for 2 weeks. That means anyone that plays Vermintide 2 and wants to take a look at the modded difficulties in Vermintide will be paired with a coach. A coach is usually a more experienced veteran player that is in the community for a bit longer, and you will be playing as a team for 2 weeks together to practice all these harder difficulties and maybe learn a thing or two in the process. So this is going on currently, and throughout these 2 weeks, we have a couple of streams, all of them very educational about very specific topics, and we will want to look into them one by one to see if we can learn from them and maybe use one or two of these ideas in our games as well, so we can maybe overcome these very high challenges a little bit easier. So without further ado, I would like to start the presentation. In case you want to say something before that, Chance of Firewatch?
Go ahead, Firewatch, you first.
No, it should be you first, though, wouldn't it? Because.
Sure.
Or do you want me to do? Yeah. Because I expected you to go over We'll go over the fundamentals first, and then we'll go over the slot system, because the slot system itself is a little bit complicated. So best to get your ABCs down before you start writing sentences. So Chance, good luck.
Yeah, thank you, Firewatch. And I wholeheartedly agree. We have to walk before we can run, right? Okay, so Firewatch has recorded a video to go in depth into the slot system. I'm here basically to talk about frontline positioning, some good habits, some habits you may want to avoid, and to overall talk about the goal of the frontline as a role entirely. So first things first, frontliners are classes that primarily have melee focus in their kits, such as Mercenary, Ironbreaker, Unchained, Warrior Priest, Grail Knight, those kinds of characters who necessarily can thrive in where the elites are, and they're good at holding positions or dealing damage to armored targets or high health targets in the melee range. So the key of a frontline is to hold the enemies off of your backline while your backline is enabled to kill specials. Because as a frontliner, your worst enemy is a special, and as a backliner, your worst enemy is trash that wants to stab you in the kidney. So if done right, if synced up well, a good team will have a backliner in a good position and safe. And a backliner will keep the front line able to stay where they are so that blights don't displace them, so they aren't getting hooked as frequently, etc.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Chance. I'd say we just jump right into the stream and take a look at that now. So I will just go ahead and press play.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chance, for explaining the frontline concepts. Now we'll go over the macro mechanics, stuff that usually concerns a team or from a top-down view stuff. So now I like to visualize Frontline as a giant wall protecting the horde of water rats from coming in. So let's assume that we have 3 people standing next to each other in this whole spot. Now, what they would be doing essentially is they would be forming a wall. And what this wall can do is prevent the rats from entering the back, aka protecting the backline. So you can see that I can infinitely hold water. I can infinitely hold a lot of rats from entering the backline. But the moment one front line falls and their formation is broken, so let's assume that let's show this again. It's a little bit too way better. Okay, there we go. So let's assume that the front lines are relatively spread out. So what does it mean is that this frontliner can only cover this area, and this frontliner, these two, cover these 2 areas with like double protection because, you know, 2 people. Now let's assume that this diamond over here is the backline. So what would happen in this situation where we assume the horde would go for like this? Then let's do a simulation. You can see that instantly the water spills into space and goes for the backline, and our backline is dead. So slowly but surely, when the water fills up, aka the enemies fill up, you will notice that the front line is getting surrounded. Now the front line is dead. This front line is dead, that front line is dead. That front line is sort of still alive, but she's supposedly dead. Why is this so important to stay together, to stay like a line? Why do I have to tell this analogy? Well, that because it goes back to an underlying mechanic called the slot system. Okay, so now we're going to go over the slot system in-game with Kruber, double Krubers. So first, let's take a look at the slots. You can see that they're like green, red, yellow. These are basically the slot types. You don't need to pay much attention to these. I think they're pretty useless for a modded player to know, but just so you know that there are, think of it as like a clock with what if you realize 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12. So slots are basically the number of enemies who can attack you at a time. So let's spawn a few enemies for our Kruber to fight, just to demonstrate how enemies will path onto these slots. So if you may please face the cart. Yes. Really? You can see that the rats instantly lock onto one of the slots and they try to path over there. Taradu. Where that always works. And so, sometimes, if you've heard your coach say this before, it's the stick with wall. So why do we say you should stick with wall? So Kruber, if you may move over to this position. Yep. So you can see that some of the slots here are grayed out, which means they are inaccessible for enemies to path onto. So instead of having like 12 slots for enemies to aggro onto, now he only has 6. Now another funny thing is that a player's slots can overlap, and by overlapping they will cause them to become unavailable. So say I am currently standing like, let's give me a moment to line this up a little bit. Like, yep, like this. Notice how there is a large gaping hole in between us that you would assume enemies aren't able to path onto. Now let's turn on Onslaught, shall we? You can see that this area is completely unavailable, which means if we spawn some enemies, then they will only target, they can only target the slots in front. Or well, not really, that goes in like a lot more stuff. They will still target the slots at the back, but instead of going to the back, then they'll all group up in the front, so as we'll demonstrate right now. We'll spawn a couple of saving clan rats. Then we'll try and not move. You just keep pushing. You can see how none of them are moving back towards us despite a large gaping fucking hole. Oh, sorry for panic. And me and Elder Gruber are able to quickly make work of these enemies. Nice one. So, you can see how just by standing close to each other and by standing close to a wall, you are able to reduce the amount of enemies that come at you while also making sure that the enemies do not flow to the back. So say there was like a Waystalker standing over there. Just by standing like this and by overlapping our slots. I'll do that again. Whoops. I'll go frontward all. Okay, yep, like this. Yes, by standing like this, the enemies will only be forced to stay in front, and none of them can spill back the backline. This is the same with elites as well, so let's spawn a few plague monks just to demonstrate this idea again. Notice how none of them are able to get back, because they're all targeted. They lock onto the slot, but they're all forced to stay in front because the path towards the back slots are all unavailable. This is why sometimes people will tell you slot abusing is powerful, slot abusing can increase your aggro capacity like 10,000, but this is very much true. Now, another way you can make slots unavailable is by directly standing onto the slots. So you can see that by standing onto this 5, it's become grayed out, and that means that it's... Of course, this is for like very tight spaces, so maybe... Kruber, can you come with me? So like maybe when we drop down to over there, this will be a way better representation. So stay where I'm at, water where I'm at if you can. Yep, like that. Go back up a little more, a little more. That'll do. Okay, so you can see how Kruber is standing. He's making his left slots and right slots all unavailable, which means the enemies can only have one. Okay. Which means the enemies only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 slots to path onto. Now let's see what happens when we spawn a bunch of trash. We'll see if we can have them path towards the back. You can see how, because some of the enemies aren't assigned to the back slots, there are only 2 Skaven slaves attacking Kruber at once. We'll do the same with just like 4 elites. I guess you can handle it. Do you have block cost reduction? You do. You're fine. Let's have like 1, 2, 3. They got path bombs with the slots, but you'll see that none of them can make it to the back. Spawn just like a couple more. Look at more trash this time. You can see that despite the amount of trash I spawn. We'll do that again, stay where you are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that only one of them is stacking. I can spawn as much as I want. And you will notice that only one of them is attacking. Of course, this all changes if I also stand next to Gruber. Much more of them will attack because they have more slots to lock onto, to aggro onto. But the same remains. Only one enemy is attacking, the others have been pushed back to waiting. And so let's slowly kill the lead stat. So just by standing next to physical objects, you are reducing your slots. And by reducing your slots, you are also reducing the amount of enemies that can aggro onto you, and also the amount of enemies that can attack you at once. There are certain situations where this is not true. We don't know why it's happening. Jsat probably has a video on this that you can watch. But for now, we'll ignore it and we'll say that they can only attack one. Just for the sake of simplifying this for new players to understand. Now, I'll switch to Ironbreaker so I can demonstrate something else. So if you may, please weave over here, and then... So let's say, now you're playing Ironbreaker, and now there's a ton of Berserkers in front of you. Normally, people on official realm will be like, oh, there's some keen, or like just dodging and not caring about blocking. But in fact, blocking is very powerful. Blocking allows you to hold a space relatively easily. So let's spawn like, I don't know, 20 Black Monks. And I'm gonna stand here. Notice how I'm able to contain them all back just by holding. And Kruber, come and DPS these ones, please. I'm feeling very scared. Just by standing here, and by occasionally pushing back, standing in front, you can see that all the enemies are aggroed onto me, but Kruber here is able to remain safe and be able to attack at a safe distance. Let's now go on to positioning in hold spots. Now there are two types of hold spots. One is a tight space, or one is a open space. We will first go over the tight space. So let's assume you're currently in this hold of Screaming Bell. Let's draw out the walls. Go over here, slightly over here, meeting up together. The cart itself is a wall. Now, the most ideal situation here is Ironbreaker stands around here. Oh, let's assume something first. Let's assume the majority of enemies are coming from here. And let's assume that only some of them are dropping down from here. Which means, with a composition like Armbreaker, GK, Witch Hunter, and Waystalker, Ironbreaker would want to stand here because a large amount of enemies are coming from here. He is the one most capable of holding the space and preventing the enemies from spilling him back. GK instead will be standing here, where he is safe with Ironbreaker blocking all the attacks in front, and he can move all around the space to kill these enemies, or also killing these enemies at a safe distance. And Witch Hunter will be here, moving around the space, supporting GK if we need to, supporting Ironbreaker if we need to, and also killing the trickling enemies from over here. While Waystalker, in the most ideal situation, stands at the back. Because while Waystalker is standing at the back, Waystalker can get sightline of elites from here. Waystalker can also kill specials from here, and all specials from above with her ult. Now let's zoom in. Let's zoom into here as to why Ironbreaker and GK stand like this weird formation. So let's draw it out. That's a little bit more better. There we go. Now, when we place Ironbreaker in an open space like this, let's draw out his thoughts. You can see that they're pretty widely spaced, don't you think? Now, let's follow the advice of sticking with walls. Let's do that. Now, Ironbreaker here is sticking in near the cart. Let's draw out his thoughts. You can see that these are invalid. Well, these the enemies can still path onto, and you can see there is a very obvious large hole here where enemies can just flood into this and go into backline. Well, now you have to remember that Vermintide is a 4-player co-op game. Ironbreaker here is not alone. Instead, there is GK standing right behind him. So let's now draw out GK's slots with purple. Oops, be a little bit better. You can see how these slots are overlapping. Well, this is overlapping. These are slightly overlapping. We'll count them as overlapping for like educational purposes only. Now you can see that by doing so, Ironbreaker and GK have formed a wall of this shape, which means enemies can only flood from here, here, and here. And to the extent that they can only use up this much space. This is because the enemies cannot use these slots because they're unavailable. Nor can the enemies path over to here because they're unavailable. Their only choice would be to go through this area, in which they would get blocked by here because the slots are unavailable, and also because GK here would be actively killing the elites currently targeting Ironbreaker. So Ironbreaker standing here not only absorbs enemy aggro because they would be busy facing towards him, while GK here is completely safe from any threats, and GK is able to dispatch these elites relatively quickly. And now I'll give you a in-game demonstration. Now you can do this pretty much anywhere. If you refer to the diagrams that I drew during the other videos, the other part of the video you will see soon, you will notice how I made a reference to where Ironbreaker is standing here and Real Knight standing around here. So let's actually get a in-game representation of that. So Kruber, could you please stand over here? I'll stand over here, and we can just double check the slots. Yep. It should be fine now, but stand a little bit further. Okay. So, you can see right now that these slots are unavailable. That slot is unavailable, which means technically if I spawn a bunch of Plague Wings or trash, they will only come in front, and occasionally they will path the back to get Kruber, but Kruber is able to deal with that relatively easily. Now let's do this with elites. So I'm going to move a little bit in front, like this. Yep, there we go. So you can see that this is unavailable. That is also sort of unavailable. This might cause a risk for Storm Vermin to path onto this, but it shouldn't. These are also unavailable. These slots available are only in front and only at the back. So let's spawn a few Storm Vermin. And see that all of them are attacking me, but none of them. So sometimes they can glitch out and like path to like some big place of like let it go in. But Kruber is also to relatively easily kill these Storm Vermin. So Kruber, please. Of course, sometimes elites will push you, but you can see how Kruber throughout that entire encounter was very safe. He was able to kill the Storm Vermin without Storm Vermin attacking him, and I was standing here just holding block, holding our ground. So what happens if I don't want to hold block? I want to dodge instead. So let's see what happens, shall we? Kruber, are you ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see what happens if I just dodge. You can see that I'm being pushed back. And although I can still hold my ground, it's pretty much very difficult. And I've already lost the ground now I'm supposed to hold. And I've also taken damage. Compared to when I was blocking, where I was being safe here, relatively able to hold this area pretty easily. So that way you can physically and visually see why blocking is such a powerful tool. I think we don't have any much more to record, and I'll go back to the MS Paint open space. The open space, which everyone hates so much. So let's assume that this is like you're playing against the grain, and there's a blob of enemies coming from here. So Chance, where would you place your front line? That's the same situation again. GK, Witch Hunter, and IB.
So this slack line is, I'm assuming, the wall in that map, or
in against the grain.
Yeah. Okay. So
in an open area like this, I actually prefer open areas as GK. But anyway, more to the point is I am going to have my special sniper in the middle as much as I can, but I want to have one person behind them, probably Witch Hunter. so that one, like, he can assist with things climbing over the wall to poke. Because the thing is, while you are reducing your slots on that wall, those enemies will climb over that wall. So, like, it's actually kind of risky, but it's like the best play you can. Open areas like this, especially where you don't have much like line of sight to cut, you need the special sniper to be protected like extra than you would normally need to, because your backline is the only way to prevent the specialists from just going wild. The frontline can't really position themselves in a way to make the backline stuff easier other than just to kill things on the backline or utilize speed to position yourself like into the farm area. So I would put IB on the left side of GK here, then I would put Witch Hunter on the right side of our special sniper.
So, like this.
Yeah. And the thing is, IB's position in this time is not super anchor. He needs to be flexible, because the thing is, when you get a horde, it can come from forward or behind, and IB needs to meet that horde every time to get a Gromrel proc off to initially take aggro. And then if he needs, then can maybe do a taunt if he wants, but taunt isn't super necessary until you're getting like surrounded in this situation. Because you have so much space, you can meet those hordes and actually take them one-on-one. Like, you can kill the first horde and then go to the second one, then go to the third. But if they get on top of you, that's IB taunt moment, or that's a resource usage.
Yep.
Dude, that was actually...
Go on.
You gave me food for thought. No, sorry, this is a mini tangent. Procking Gromrel when you meet the Horde, that's a very interesting idea. I think I might do that more often.
Well, that's how you can like get the initial aggro of a horde without utilizing your taunt. It's a really important tool to use. I taught my IB player that.
Dude,
When you see
I'm
me,
gonna have
that's
to teach
cool,
my IB player that as well. That's actually something I never considered.
Because you probably don't need it within the first, like, 20 seconds of a horde like that. So I think it's probably worthwhile.
I mean, yeah. And again, it's those situations where Gromra is only going to be useful and then saving yourself from a special. But like I said earlier, your backliner is going to prevent the specials entirely. Like, the idea here is to make the backliner as comfy as possible. So we need absolutely nothing on top of them. That's why we're saving taunt in case we get double waved or ambushed here. Okay, sorry, I'll shut up.
Oh, great. That's great. That's great. Round of applause.
Just one.
Okay, so that's basically what you want to do in an open area, explained by Chance. Now let's assume, let's consider another situation, shall we? Let's consider that Frontline is currently a massive blob. Like this, currently killing the first wave. Backline sitting here, and now we have a situation where another horde shows up from this direction. Now, I don't know if you know the term, like, in CSGO or like Valorant, there's a term called like rotating, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what does it explain again?
Basically, if your target is like a bomb site A, you might want to rotate or swing over to bomb site B.
Okay, exactly what you want to do. So in this situation, let's assume that the horde over here is getting melted by Witch Hunter and GK. So there's only a few left. In this situation, because backline here is going to get actively threatened by the next wave, that means backline should aim to back up as much as possible while blocking. And then what Frontline wants to do here is they want to move up with backline. Both of them want to meet each other, and what they want to do is Frontline wants to take backline's place, and backline wants to go back. And so right now, what you've done is you switch the positions of Frontline and backline such that the horde won't kill backline, but they kill Frontline instead. Another thing would be very useful is a diagram drawn by Wilsa. This one here. You can see here that the initial wave, or first wave, spawns right here, and Frontline is basically dealing with this, while Backline over here is getting threatened by wave 2. So Backline moves with Frontline, communicates it so that in this, it would be such that Backline here is able to switch positions with, let's say, Witch Hunter, Witch Hunter IB, and GK. And so in this picture, what is happening, which is Backliner moves through Witch Hunter and goes back, while IB stays here, and then the front line is able to meet the other ward, making sure that this will happen. So now let's go over some examples of good positioning and bad positioning. I'm going to take this from all my own videos, so I don't accidentally roast anyone. So you can see that our horde is starting to form up. Slayer is standing next to the wall because he's the DPS and he should slot abuse the most so that he won't get targeted. Now me and Mercenary, we are standing next to each other so that enemies can aggro towards us while Slayer can do his Slayer stuff. You can see how the moment you can see at the moment I see no one is over here, I dodge over because I see Mercenary in where I'm standing at, so I dodge the open space, else the enemies will just come over here and then start surrounding. So me and Mercenary, we keep this area held while Slayer over here is able to easily just dispatch any enemies from where he is. And you can see that Slayer, Mercenary, and I were keeping this nice and tight formation, making sure that none of the enemies can have a chance or space to spill through and then starting to surround us, because getting surrounded or Deathwish, is a Deathwish. And so now we're able to quickly dispatch and make good work of the enemy. And the same thing for the next wave as well. Trying to keep the horde contained into one area, one zone, making sure that none of them do spill over, although here I do make a mistake of not going to this direction, instead dodging towards inside of the front line. First collapsing it and then allowing for some Skaven slaves to pass over to my left side, which would be pretty detrimental if it was in elite. Now, since we've killed 2 waves now, the third wave isn't anywhere to be seen in front, so I'll turn my head now, or I turn my head soon, and see Slayer trying to solo a wave. Of course, all Slayers should do this because they have the moral obligation to die, but unfortunately for Barden, we're not going to let him die. We still need him. That's why me and Mercenary, we instantly move up. Now, right here, you can see that a nice little neat line has been formed by our good boy Barden. So, me and Mercenary start to move in. We quickly kill this lone berserker first because he's causing a problem by being out of line. And now me and Mercenary are slowly filling in the unoccupied spaces. So, like, example would be... Example would be here, where you can see that there's this open space, which, if left unattended to, would allow the enemies to spill through and fast surrounding us. So Mercenary here dodges to the right and makes sure that the enemies are kept contained inside. So me and Mercenary do this again. Slayer's over there, start abusing as he wants to. And now you can see that we have a nice little neat wall over here containing the horde in front of us. Now, despite this large area which you would expect enemies to be fleeing through, but because we're dodging, we're able to cover a lot of space, and therefore we're able to slowly back up to buy us some time to do DPS while also making sure that none of them accidentally get through. Now we slowly just mob things up. Now soon we do pretty much the same for the next 3 waves. And now here's a crucial mistake as well. Remember how I said that you should stay nice and tight with your team? What you don't want to do instead is to be separated. So right now, me and Slater, we're going up to face this horde. I dodge to the left because I'm anticipating for Slayer to stay where he is and to kill these elites. Instead, Slayer dodges to the right. Now I have 1 Berserker and possibly 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, not 5 Storm Vermin on me. Well, Slayer here is prone to getting surrounded by these. Now, what Slayer should have done here would have to either been staying in this line and help me kill these elites because he has the time, with the horde needs time to go to him. But instead, he splits too far away. So now me and Slayer are susceptible to getting surrounded because we've left such a large space for enemies to come. While Mercenary is nowhere to be seen because Mercenary right now is helping Sister to snipe elites. So what I end up with is the elites start to run around me, and you can see that I'm almost gonna get surrounded. While Slayer here pulls the hordes to be in uniform with the other ones. Mercenary comes back, helps me kill the Storm Vermin, and now me and Mercenary change place so that I can move over to support Slayer. So in this case, it would be this diagram. Except I have switched up places, so yeah, it will do. So notice how we have some like key, put some like there's some elites over here. So Slayer, supposedly the horde was all over here, but Slayer pulls the horde so that it's in uniform with the other one, so that you can see how they can be contained in the square. While Mercenary and I, we make quick work of these elites, or we try to reposition ourselves. Now, Mercenary keeps the 2 elites occupied, while allowing for me, Witch Hunter, to quickly slip through and go over here, which makes us being able to surround the elites. Now, not only can elites surround you, but you can also surround elites. Let's make it so that the elite can only target Mercenary, but he can't defend himself against me. So I'm able to kill these elites. Bada bang, bada boom. And now we move on to kill this elite. Bam. And me and Mercenary are able to move back in line, and now we've formed a nice, pretty line and like pretty wall. Of course, that is the ideal situation, but sometimes you just can't really just defend against enemies spilling through. So sometimes you do have to give up a lot of space. But you can see that we're still able to relatively recover. So remember to stick together, stable walls. Try to make it so that you're both all in line with each other, making a wall containing the enemy in an area.
Sorry, my mic was muted. Thank you, Chance. Thanks, Firewatch, for your video, for your explanation, for the frontlining, and for the slot system. That was a brief introduction. There is a lot more to this. So in case you're already overwhelmed, don't worry, there's more. But I think this is probably already more than anyone would really need to know in any specific situation. Anyways, this is a very good analysis of what is happening currently, how the game thinks, how you can strategize together as a frontline, and how you can advance in your journey through the modded difficulties. So yeah, Chance or Firewatch, do you want to briefly add something to the video.
That's yes. Let me see if I can like. It's 3-4 years supposed to sleep, but I just forgot something. Let me see if I can actually show this. Is it fine?
Can
I
you
don't know if
give me
you
a
can,
moment?
see my screen.
You have to give me a moment, I'm sorry. So Firewatch is trying to add something to his explanation right there. Which is this right here. All right. You can be seen.
How did the gate look like again? Screaming Bell. Second hold spot. The one you drop after the. Did it open like this?
Yeah, pretty
Yes.
much.
Okay. I'll extend and I'll just like read this. Okay. Quick explanation here for why they won't attack. So there's this thing called let's draw out the player again. That's a fucking triangle. That's horrible. A square, a circle. Let's treat this as like the player, and then we draw out the slots. This. So let's assume there's like around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's way more. So each of these enemies would path onto one of the slots. So this one goes here. This one might go here. This one here. This one here. Oops. This one here. And this one here. Oops, that's double. Here. Here. And so all the slots have been occupied. There's no more extra slots. So what about this little guy? What is he gonna do? So there's this thing called, if I'm correct, a waiting area for each of the slots. Around, let's say 3 to 4 Krubers away from the slots themselves. Or in terms of medkits, probably like 5 to 6. I know it's very hard to visualize, but since this little guy has nowhere to go, he's going to get assigned because he's closest to this slot, so he's going to get assigned to this slot. But because this slot already has someone occupying it, so instead he's going to be kicked into the waiting area. And so no matter the amount of enemies that still come and attack you, because these slots are still being occupied, that means all of them would just go into waiting slots. So when one of the enemies in here dies, let's assume this one dies, then one of the waiting enemies, or one of the enemies in the waiting area, will move up, take their spot, and then continue to put pressure on you. So now what happened during the gate section was, let's try this. Slots, I don't think I need to. We'll show one on top here. So what was happening was, see like a bunch of enemies being drowned here. Since you only have one slot available, that means let's say only like a Skaven slave gets assigned to the slot. So all of these enemies, or the entire horde, will be locked into the waiting area. And there's a few nasty things you can do about this, because if we're assuming like the player's currently playing like IB or like Knights or Priest, like these are very stable and very strong hold carriers, so realistically they would be able to like hold a horde in the gate. Depending on the difficulty, of course, you can do so until every dawns. You're not gonna survive on spicy.
But again, you can abuse the fact that the enemies are sitting helplessly in the waiting area. You can probably like chuck a firebomb, burn these people down, have Sienna use beam staff, burn these down. There's a lot you can do. You can have waste stalkers sitting at the back, just shooting elites, because the enemies here, they realistically are just standing still. They aren't gonna have like any sudden movements as long as this game's players remains alive. So you can use this to get like some easy cheap kills off. There's a lot you can abuse with these mechanics. So just something that I want to add onto this as well. And also for the blocking and dodging thing, that's for blocking vs dodging, you might notice throughout the video I say like blocking is good and dodging is bad. This is completely fucking wrong. You shouldn't treat them as separate objects. You should treat them as part of your tool set, because in Vermin and Tide, I'd like to classify. Oops. I'd classify like the defensive options, aka stuff you can do to avoid damage, would be 1, dodging. Let's use purple for this. 2, blocking. And 3, does anyone want to take a guess? This one's a little bit hard.
Run away.
Run away. I think that's probably like an extension of dodging, like just running
I'm
away.
kidding.
You go in there or running and kiting. But the final one would be staggering, which is usually abbreviated as pushing. But by also attacking enemies, you're also staggering them. This is very obvious on Official Realm, not so much on Deathwish, because what Deathwish does is it makes it so staggering is less of an option. That means you can only rely on pretty much on dodging and blocking against elites. So treat dodging as blocking. You should use these two simultaneously. Don't overly focus on dodging. Don't overly focus on blocking. If you focus on blocking, then you're pretty much reducing personal DPS. You're reducing personal DPS, and you're also reducing team DPS. Because you're holding your right mouse button, you aren't attacking. You aren't attacking, that means there's a lot of potential damage forgone. And if you dodge, then there's a high chance of losing space. You can see that both blocking and dodging, they have pros and cons to them. So you shouldn't just overly rely on blocking, you shouldn't overly rely on dodging, you should rely on both. Fuck. You should rely on both. Depending on the situation you want to block, depending on the situation you want to dodge. Again, this comes with experience. You can talk with your coach about this. Yep, and I think that's pretty much all I have to add.
Thank you.
Chance, you want to say anything else?
Thank you, Firewatch, for this small explanation to the blocking and dodging versus encounter, because that's also something I actually had a question about as well. So thank you. Chance.
Yeah, thank you, Firewatch. The video was good. The live drawing was pretty good. It it addressed a lot of things I wanted to discuss. So a couple things to know I want to add regarding dodging and blocking. You need to keep in mind where, like, the actual terrain and how many and what kind of enemies you're actually blocking against, because, for example, if there are a lot of potential run-enders from maulers or overheads from Chaos Warriors, Storm Vermin, what have you, dodging is less of an option sometimes, because you don't want to accidentally drag that attack into another teammate, thus doubling the value of one attack. As a frontliner, one of my main things is I try to keep a mental note where all of my teammates are standing at all times. It's a good way to avoid, dragging attacks into them, but it's also a good way to understand what is being covered and where you need to be standing. It's not the worst thing to overlap your slots to make a hole, but if you are both standing way too close, you'll actually get some enemies that are able to path behind you as the front line, or worst case, path to your special sniper or your backliner character. One important thing to note is the type of enemies you're fighting as well. Skaven will play differently than Chaos do. Chaos will typically fight you from in front, and Skaven will try to slot behind you. Beastmen will also try to slot behind you as well. So if I know I'm going against Chaos, I'm okay to try to essentially hold my own pocket of the wall there. But if it's Skaven, I'm periodically going to make sure that none are flooding through, which is very possible for them. Another thing is where you fight really dictates a lot of what can happen. For example, you're not always going to have 4 walls or 3 walls, one to your left, one to your right, and one to your back. Sometimes enemies will do some sneaky climb downs, or sometimes enemies will get thrown behind you by blight storms or monsters, what have you. This comes into the concept of linearization. As a frontline, you always want every enemy to be in front of you. I know that sounds like really, really, really obvious, but sometimes rat game will throw enemies behind you. I swear, there's always one pink rat behind me at all times. This game is I've developed a sense of just constantly looking behind me in game. But where this particularly comes into play is when you are fighting one horde and a horde will spawn in from behind you. If you can't kill the horde in time, you now need to position yourself so that all the enemies are on one side rather than surrounding you.
Thank you. That is a lot more addition to what we have already seen. So thank you, Firewatch, and thank you, Chance, for this very long and detailed explanation of frontline principles and the slot system in general. Especially the slot system is a system that is so weird to understand and to see it work in real time. So thanks a lot for the explanation of that. Now I'm here to ask you. You're here in the voice chat, in the Onslaught server, and you're also in the Twitch chat. So if you have any more questions, if you want to know anything further or have any detailed things you want to hear elaborated on, then this is the time for you. Thank you. Alright, everyone's still trying to overcome the situation of being completely blasted with Vermintide science knowledge for like 30 minutes. That's understandable. That is very understandable. Thanks a lot. I would say, in case there are no further questions, I will just give you a small heads up.
Can I have one further
Yes,
question?
Of course.
Let's suppose we have a situation when we have a downed teammate, and as a teammate who is not downed, I'd like to revive that teammate. What is the best way to take advantage of the slot system to minimize the amount of damage that the downed player is taking? Like, how can I efficiently protect my teammate who is down? Do I like go and stand on top of them, right exact where they are, or is there a more efficient way of protecting them with my own body?
Chance, Firewatch, would you like to explain?
Onto that enemy and they'll continue attacking them, because from experience, I think I've never had a enemy who was like attacking a downed player suddenly attack me. I think those cases were pretty rare. Typically, if you have a downed player, then you eventually are going to have to use some sort of resource to rescue your down player. Maybe you have to use an extra strength point, maybe you have to use your HP to block an attack. There isn't much abusing you can do with the slot system here. In fact, the best option would be to make it so the down player dies in a way in which he's abusing the slot system, which is pretty hard. Because usually, if a player is down, he's gonna get surrounded ASAP. He made a mistake. He's in the open field, or he just has a skill issue.
Quick thing to know: if you do have a down teammate, you need to sort of recognize the situation. So, for an example, if it's a very dire situation in which your frontline has been overheaded, the other frontliner may be able to give them the revive that they need, but sometimes it's even better for your backline to grab that revive so that the frontliner can keep his position and keep less enemies from attacking that downed player. Another thing to note is I'm of the mind that a revive is a revive. So, like, I don't always entrust my revive to just one player in particular, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe Handmaiden if you've drafted it, but if you lose one player, that's 1/4 of your team's overall damage. It's gone. So it's really important that you get that player up, but do it in a way that's, one, going to avoid farming them, and two, going to avoid costing you your positioning to do so. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Yeah, what's
Go
up?
ahead.
Do you change positioning depending on whether it's a Berserker or Mauler/Storm Vermin wave? Because Berserkers can only attack one person at a time.
Okay, I have a lot to talk about this. I have a fucking lot to talk about this.
Okay.
Remind me. I'm gonna go on a 20-minute detour about this.
Okay.
No, let's keep it short, Firewatch, please.
Berserkers, they have this tendency, because if you know, they're green little bastards. But they have this tendency where if they do a frenzy attack, aka the one that you need to block and like they attack in a lot of times in a row, and the last attack costs you stamina, that's called a frenzy attack. Now, they have this special property where they will, one, push away nearby enemies. Nearby teammates, actually. They will push away nearby teammates, and also they will only hone. They only hone onto one target. That means if you're fighting a if you're setting a berserker. Okay, let's not this right. If you're fighting a berserker, you should not be staying close to each other, because if you were staying close to each other and this berserker is going for this player, then what will end up is when the berserker crashes down into this, these two are gonna get bounced off. And worst case scenario, I've seen people die to ledges because of this. Now, when you're fighting like a berserker wave, instead of like trying to stay in a night tight formation, what you want to do is you want to just spread out slightly. Don't spread out too much, just only spread out slightly. And when you're facing a frenzy attacks are very dangerous. If you missed a dodge, then that's gonna cost you like around 50 to 60 of your 60 HP. So what you should do when you fight a berserker wave is, one, block on contact, and two, spread out a little. Now this is for berserkers. This is also for monks, kills berserkers. I forgot what their name is. Savages. But for storm vermin and maulers, they are a little bit different. One of the most key defining features is that they have a lot of mass. So usually, if there's like a bunch of Stormvermin here, SV. There's this thing that Lonk once experimented with is if you move and face the Stormvermin, what you want to do is you want to actually make their attacks uniform, because if like I have these 3 Stormvermin, they walk up to attack me, then one is going to do a standing attack, one is going to do a running attack, one is going to do an overhead, and those attacks have like various dodge timings. So instead, what you want to do is you want to meet them at a point where they are equal distance to each other. So in this, it would be around roughly here. If you manually walk through here, then there should be a 25% chance of a running attack, and the rest will be 25. I think the math is, if the math is correct, so I go 75 attacks of standing attacks. So for Berserkers, spread out, block, and for Mauls and Stormvermin, I like to just approach them head on so I can get the dodge timings down. Chance, do you have anything you want to add on to this?
Yeah, sure. Regarding Berserkers, I believe you may have covered it a little bit Firewatch, but I just want to speak on it as well. Berserkers, so in this instance, Plague Monks and Roblet Savages, they will lock onto a particular player and they will try to kill that player with their single target damage. I believe the final attack, their large strike, I believe that's the only attack they can do that can hit multiple players. But my point is a big thing you can do as a frontliner is try to recognize the aggro of that berserker. So I like to play it safe. When I go to meet them, as Firewatch said, I will hold blocked in case they're aggro to me or they may be aggro behind me. This is another reason why it's important to take a mental note of where your teammates are standing. Because if I see that the berserker is running towards where I know Firewatch to be, I can actually take some time to kill that berserker before it even meets him. And thus he can keep his stamina. He doesn't have to worry about the additional pressure of that. Yeah. If I know it's going on a backliner, I will do everything in my power to kill it before the backliner gets absolutely decimated by a frenzied combo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a few more questions in the chat. Maybe you can elaborate on those real quick as well before we close the stream. First of all, is there a good way to practice kiting?
So I know it was kind of a meme response by Muertos to say take Halberd Merc into the mid event of Righteous Stand, but actually what I do to practice my own kiting, I will pick a weapon in particular that I want to practice with, but overall this would work if you just have general goals to improve. I will use, I believe the mod is called Vermin Trainer. I will go to the mid event of Righteous Stand with the pacing disabled. I will spawn 2 hordes, and I will kite them as long as I humanly can until I take a hit. But if you don't want to do that, you can. There are events that are geared towards kiting, and they will definitely help you improve. The Righteous Stand mid event is a great one to utilize for this. Before Braxenbrücke final event in Onslaught is another one where it relies on your kiting. That's just kiting in a single person setting. If you want to improve kiting as a team, I believe that strong communication is the best way, and staying close together, because if you're close together, your slots are overlapping, but also the enemies are more likely to be behind you. So they're not trying to cut a particular player off who is ahead or maybe behind.
Nice, thank you. Another question from the chat is, my main problem right now is taking stray hits from elite stirring hordes. Is that a positioning problem, relying too much on dodging, Or am I just a noob? I think the last one can be crossed out. You're definitely not a noob. But what might be the issue, and
You are
what could we
definitely
do?
not. You've helped so many new players, so you're definitely not new. But I would say that this is more of because I haven't actually seen any of your like in game, so I can't really make a proper response. But I would say that this is more like a lack of experience in modded because again, what Chan said, because you can read the attack patterns in a horde and there's no way to teach you how to read the attack patterns. It's a lot of dying, a lot of trial and error, but you will eventually get that sense of when a elite will attack, when you will get hit by like a stray slave and scave. But in general, try to position yourself so that you're minimizing the amount of elites that kill you if you're not responsible. Chance, you want to add on to this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna happen for a moment.
So, yeah, like I mentioned, reading the horde will help you a lot. Knowing like this enemy is now attacking, so I do not have the time to make a hit here, will help you a lot. But you can actually abuse the slot system here with elites, like specifically elites. Say I have a bunch of unarmored and no shielded trash, or just trash on me in general, and there's a storm vermin going for an overhead. A timed block, a parry, or just even a block will actually send them backwards behind that trash, and thus they have to go back into that waiting slot instead of being in the active slot of damaging you. You can actually capitalize on this by getting rid of some of that trash that's on top of you, or for example, if you have a long-reaching weapon, you can poke at that elite without him really having the option to fight back. What comes to mind when I think of that particularly is halberd, executioner sword, even handgun or some sort of ranged weapon. But also, backliners, if they don't have anything to do, are usually equipped to take out elites that aren't really on your front line as well. So I would advise that you block their attack, or also just recognize that they can only do so many attacks, and when you block them, their animation is reset. So you have time to react, or a teammate has time to react.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that covers pretty much everything. We have no questions in the chat that I can see right now. We have nothing in the voice chat tag of the voice chat here. Or does anyone else have any more questions to Chance or to Firewatch about the topic that was just explained, considering the frontline positioning towards your team, positioning towards the environment, and positioning in general in when you think about the slot system and how it works in the game, how enemies path, how enemies come up to you, and when they decide where they want to go. Very, very cool stuff. Mechanics you do not see in the game all too often. And yeah, in the end, it all comes down to practice and how much time you have spent getting these attack patterns to recognize them, to know what you will do next and what is maybe going to happen next as well. So yes, that is a lot of knowledge, a lot of knowledge in such a short amount of time. Thank you very much, Chance, and thanks a lot, Firewatch. It was great having you, and with that,
I have a question.
Oh, there we go. Let's go. Go ahead.
Do specials interact with the slot system at all?
I'm sorry, can you go ahead?
I can very much confidently tell you no. If they did, then special would be very easy.
Can you repeat the question real quick so we can understand what was answered?
Do specials interact with the slot system at all?
Ah, there we go. So no, specials do not interact with the slot system, as Firewatch just mentioned. I'm sorry, that was a bit of a noise in the background there. Alright. So I want to give you a short heads up for the next stream, which is going to be on Saturday. Saturday, 12 p.m. ETC, or 6 p.m. CET. We will be talking about boss triggers, patrol triggers, and respawn triggers. Oh yes, all these triggers. What do they do in the map, and what even are they? So we will be talking about that on Saturday. get ready for that. And other than that, thanks a lot for joining. Thanks a lot for your questions and for your participation. Thanks a lot again for Chance and Firewatch for this small lecture of the Onslaught University. And I will see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me. GG's,
Goodbye,
fellas.
everyone.
See ya.